Welcome to the Empower Her podcast. I'm Deanna, an ex-corporate manager turned certified coach, empowering you to create the life of your dreams. My goal is to guide you and support you in understanding what you really want in life, what steps to take to get there, and learn to actually enjoy the ride. Whether you are climbing the corporate ladder, a stay-at-home parent, or an entrepreneur, I coach you on how to believe you are worthy of a balanced, happy, and energetically positive life in work and at home. My goal in this podcast is to help you recognize patterns, implement change, and use your energy for positivity within yourself and your own life. I believe you don't have to suffer in this lifetime. You can create a life on your terms based on what you want, regardless of what that looks like. It is about reframing your beliefs, letting go of negative thoughts, and looking at your life as a set of opportunities there for you. I'm so excited to get started. Hello, and welcome back to the Empower Her podcast. We are really in the full swing of fall. I'm looking out the window right now. It has gotten chillier. I might actually need a sweater. And obviously, you all know that this is the time of year when pumpkin spice is all the craze. This is a life update, okay? Get ready for this. So, I've never really had pumpkin spice, like in terms of a pumpkin spice latte or things like that. My mom would make a pumpkin cheesecake pie every Thanksgiving, which is incredible and probably similar flavors. But I've never really had like the pumpkin spice latte or whatever, because in the last however many years when it's become really popular and people have really drank it, I couldn't because I'm dairy free. I'm unfortunately very intolerant to dairy. So I haven't had any dairy for the last 8 years. It makes me really sick. So all those pumpkin spice like lattes and stuff, like the actual syrup has dairy in it. So I haven't been able to try it. And, I don't drink caffeine, as I've mentioned before, but every once in a while I like to have a coffee as like a treat. I'll do like half an espresso and then do the rest of like milk, like either oat milk or whatever. And then I like to have some sort of like sugar-free flavoring. So I've seen so many people post on TikTok talk of like their own pumpkin spice. So I was like, I'm just going to try it. So I decided to make it at home. I made a small batch, a sugar-free batch. It turned out good. It wasn't as like thick or like syrupy as I would have liked it to be, but I can trial and error and see what works. And I don't really, because I don't drink caffeine, I just do it as like a treat every once in a while. So I just purposely made a really small batch because again, I just don't drink a lot of caffeine. But I might need to play around with it, see if I can thicken it up, maybe use some cornstarch, tapioca starch, something along those lines to make it like that syrupy consistency, because it was really watery. So I'm not really sure how I can get it to that consistency. Maybe I needed to boil the sugar or whatever, the fake sugar longer, the sweetener longer. We will see. But my goal with this is I'm trying to enjoy fall more, because as I mentioned in the last episode, I used to be a fall hater, because to me, fall meant the end of summer and the start of winter, and I absolutely hate the cold. It's not even the cold, it's the dark, it's the gray. Like December is fine, right? Because it's Christmas. I love the holidays. Up until December is fine. January 2nd to April 1st is my nightmare. It's dark, it's gray, it's cold. It's just not my vibe. So I think I'm always like, when fall starts, I'm like, oh my God, we're getting to that time of year. But I have to remind myself that winter is still far away. I don't need to start freaking out about that. We still have sunlight until like 6:30 p.m., which for here is like good. I grew up in California, so, I still haven't gotten used to this, but I'm just trying to enjoy fall more. So I might even do a TikTok series on this about like how I'm trying to enjoy fall more. So if you don't follow me on there, definitely do, at Coach Deanna DeBolt. I'm going to try to do a TikTok series on like trying to do more fall fun things. But in today's episode, I wanted to talk about an experience I had recently with someone and how it affected me. And it was very, very interesting and ironic. So as you all know, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure you know that I'm a neurodivergent coach. I support neurodivergent individuals with their career, energy management, all that good stuff. So most of my clients, or a lot of my clients, are neurodivergent. I personally have never identified as being neurodivergent, or I never thought that I could be. It just wasn't something that crossed my mind. But I do a lot of networking calls. I really try to reach out to people in my industry, other neurodivergent individuals, coaches, people that work with neurodivergent individuals, because I really want to build this community. And I was having a call with someone who was in the industry. This person was neurodivergent, and we were talking about our work, how we live life, you know, how we kind of go about things. And she said to me something along the lines of, "I'm surprised you aren't neurodivergent with everything you're saying, how your brain works." And that was such a moment for me when I was like, am I neurodivergent? And of course, the first thing I did is I went online and I was like, can I do a test online to see if I'm neurodivergent? And I found one that was looked like it was legit. It was to see if you have ADHD. And even though it explicitly states oh, this isn't an official diagnosis, it actually did say to me that I probably am neurodivergent, or I have a lot of ADHD traits. So my first thought when thinking about potentially being neurodivergent is that it makes sense, right? I literally help neurodivergent women elevate their lives with tools and strategies that I have personally used to elevate mine. So if I have used those tools, wouldn't it make sense that maybe I'm neurodivergent, right? So my second thought was, oh, this is cool. That means my brain works in a different way, and that's great, right? I think neurodivergent brains are amazing. I literally preach this to my clients in all of our social media, that being neurodivergent is not a death sentence, and it's not negative. It's a positive thing, and how to use it in a positive way. So I just that thought of allowing yourself to love your brain is quite freeing. And I know that so many neurodivergent individuals, I have so many clients who, once they get their diagnosis that they're neurodivergent, they feel a sense of relief, right? They feel that they can breathe again. They feel like they understand themselves and their brains more. And so with that said, though, my third thought was, well, even if I am neurodivergent, it doesn't really matter, right? Because at the end of the day, my diagnosis, a potential diagnosis, right, doesn't determine who I am. And so for me, because I never even thought about it, it wasn't something I was ever told. It wasn't something that I was ever given an option of being. It didn't really cross my mind. And so I don't think it would make a big impact on my life. It would obviously make things more, it would be more understandable of why I help neurodivergent individuals from a spiritual perspective, for sure. But I don't know that it would actually help my daily life, because the thing is that even though it would give me some clarity on why my brain works the way it does, I already create a life that's based around my energy. So all the things that I teach my neurodivergent clients to do, I already do those things, right? I pay attention to my energy. I pay attention to my menstrual cycle. I implement time management and energy management tools that work for me. I have a great morning and night routine. I do all the research literally on neurodivergence and have always implemented these tools, even though I personally have never been diagnosed as someone who's neurodivergent, right? So I think this is a good lesson because, and I say this all the time, right? Even though I talk a lot towards neurodivergent individuals and I promote my content towards neurodivergent individuals, even if you're not neurodivergent, you should still be doing the same things that I'm teaching and that I'm coaching on, right? You should still be listening to your energy even if you're neurotypical. You should still have a morning and night routine even if you're neurotypical. You should still pay attention to your cycle even if you're neurotypical, right? These are the things that you should be doing anyways, even if you're neurotypical. This doesn't change. The reason that I focus and talk so much to neurodivergent individuals specifically is because a lot of the characteristics and traits of being neurodivergent is people pleasing, is putting others first, is not listening to your own energy, thinking that your way of thinking and working is wrong. And so I really work to help neurodivergent individuals reprogram their brains and their subconscious so that they understand that the way that they work, the way their brain thinks is unique and it's positive and it's amazing, that it's not a negative thing, right? But at the end of the day, everyone should be using these tools, right? Like you should listen to your energy. So this conversation to me was just extremely eye-opening. And, I don't believe in coincidences. I am a very spiritual person. Like the fact that this person said this to me, like it was meant to be said to me, right? And I've considered since then, this happened a couple weeks ago, I've been considering since, should I, go see someone and get a formal diagnosis, right? And what's so interesting is a lot of neurodivergent individuals mask. And masking, and I've talked about it on the pod before, but masking is when you, as a neurodivergent individual, where you see neurotypicals, and let's just talk about the workplace, and you try to conform to the way they do things. So you're putting on this mask of a neurotypical as a neurodivergent individual. And so you're trying to live your life and work the way that they do. And my entire life, I've always been really studious. I've gotten good grades. I've studied really hard. It hasn't always come easy to me. Like I've really had to work hard. I'm someone that I always say that I'm not someone who's naturally just like super, super smart, but I have an incredible amount of persistence. Like I will do something until I get it right. Like that is me. In school, like if I had a bad grade or I didn't have the grade I wanted, I would go to tutoring, I would do extra credit. Like I would do everything I could extra to get what I wanted, that good grade or get the job I wanted or learn the task I was supposed to do or whatever. That's always how I felt about myself. And that's not degrading towards me. Like I can be reflective that I'm not someone who's like naturally the most intelligent person in the world, but I've always been extremely persistent and I've always done the most when it came to anything that I wanted to do, accomplish, or learn. But when I think about this, it's a very much a neurodivergent trait of someone who maybe doesn't fit in the way or doesn't learn the way everyone else does. And they have to try extra hard to do that. I've always gone above and beyond, giving 200, 300% in my work. That's a typical neurodivergent trait. Now that I'm not working in corporate anymore, obviously when you work in corporate in a 9 to 5, you often have to conform to how they work, right? Like you have to work certain times of day, certain days of the week. You have certain tasks that you have to get done. They usually give you KPIs. They usually tell you how long things take, right? And so I was doing those things according to how it was working in corporate. And I had a very dysregulated nervous system, which again is often correlated with someone who's neurodivergent just because you're not living according to your energy. It's something that I'm really, really passionate about talking about. And it's just something that's extremely, extremely important to look at. And I think that that's it's been interesting because the last few years I, left corporate and I basically work on my own. So I do freelance and I have my own business and I pretty much set my own hours. And I really had to unlearn how to work because even when I first started working, I was still working the same hours as in corporate. I felt this like ingrained notion inside of me that I needed to work the way that I had in corporate. And it's slowly taken me time and time and time to let go of that. And it's been 2 years and it's still not 100% there, but I've had to let go of the way that I worked and I've had to understand how my energy works. And now I have days, for example, where like I'm super productive, like Mondays and Tuesdays, Wednesdays, I tend to be super, super productive. And then maybe on Mondays, I'm like, Monday's start of the week. I don't really want to do that much, etc. I work with my energy. I work with my cycle. I implement time management tools that work for me, like timers and task batching and the way I edit my content, right? Like I've implemented all of these tools that actually help me to be the best version of myself, which is why it's so interesting that someone told me they can't believe that I'm not neurodivergent because I basically have so many of those characteristics. But again, whether you are or not, I don't think that it matters. If a diagnosis helps you, gives you relief, makes you feel better, I'm all for it. But if you don't have a diagnosis or you feel like things aren't working for you, this is just your sign that it's okay and you can still learn to work with your energy. You can still learn to implement those tools and strategies that are going to work for you. Because when you start feeling more aligned, you are going to mentally, physically, and spiritually feel better. So while this comment from this person was extremely eye-opening and gave me a lot to think about, it doesn't change much for me. And that's sort of what I want to get out of this, is that regardless if you have a diagnosis or not, regardless if you're neurodivergent or not, I'm giving you permission to work with your energy and work with what works best for you, because you deserve it. Your body deserves it. Your mind deserves it. So it's time to start creating a life that works for you. This is your sign. If you needed a sign, this is your sign to start creating a life that actually works for you and your energy and your brain. And you got this. And if you need help with that, you know where to find me. So I hope this episode was inspiring and that you got something out of it. It's more of a personal story this time rather than like tips and tricks and a list of things, but hopefully it was inspiring for you and you got something out of it. I hope you all have an amazing, fabulous week. We're starting October this week. I'm so excited. Halloween vibes, fall vibes, sending you all the good vibes, and I'll catch you in the next episode. And if you love this episode, don't forget to follow the podcast and leave a review. And of course, you can follow me at Coach Deanna DeBolt on TikTok and Instagram. I'll catch you next time.